As I began the writing process for this video, I was struggling with figuring out what was a good opening for it all. So I wanted to start this off with a saying that I've heard all of my life, and you've probably also heard at some point in your own lives. First impressions matter. It's important that you make a statement when introducing yourself or your creation to the world. After all, you can never get it back once it's done. This is especially the case for seasonal anime. I mean, think about it. How many times have you dropped a series because you didn't like the first few episodes? Or maybe even the very first episode, because you concluded after watching that it wasn't worth your time, even though that series might become good later on. In an industry that's jam-packed with series that are worth keeping your eye on, making your show's first impression strong to the viewer is essential if you want to keep that popularity going for an entire anime season. Over the years, we can point to many examples of anime with very strong first episodes. Whether they set up the plot beautifully, they pull you in emotionally, leave you speechless at the end with a plot twist, leave you entranced in its beauty, or just simply that enjoyable of a time. A first episode can excite you to the point of borderline obsession. It can make you impatient for the next episode. Despite the fact that there are 40 anime released per season, that was the one that stuck with you. That is the power that a first episode can have on a viewer. So now that we've demonstrated why first episodes are crucial for an anime series to succeed, let's look at an anime that exceeded all of my expectations to become the perfect introduction. So, I've never done a full review on just one episode before, since I like to wait until a series actually ends before I give my thoughts on it, so we're already kinda breaking new ground here. I should probably leave a warning right now that theories on where the story may go from here will be present, and there's a good chance more episodes will be out by the time this video gets released. There hasn't been an anime in like the last decade that had a first episode that pulled me into a series and made me curious about what happens next, but also left me excited to see where it goes from here as much as this one has. I mean, the fact I made a whole video on it should tell you enough. For the people out there that may be scared by its running time, I've seen this episode twice and it never felt that long, because the story really pulls you in. So credit to Doga Koba for really putting the time into the series to make its first impression something we're going to remember forever, no matter where the series ends up. But let's really dive deeper here. What really makes it so special? Well, let's take a look. Our story begins with a message that tells the viewers the world the story takes place in is fiction, or rather it's a world made up of fiction. It seems normal for now, but this message takes on a whole new meaning once you actually finish the episode. Take this as a bit of foreshadowing for what's to come. Meet Ai. Nice name. She's a popular center for an idol group called B Komachi, who ends up getting pregnant at 16. Now, I've seen my fair share of idol shows in the past. Even an idol publicly dating someone is a big no-no, so having a baby is definitely out the question. Especially two, since it's expected she's gonna have twins. Regardless, she still wants to go through with it. We'll get into why later. So she tries to get her baby delivered in the countryside, where she hopes no one will recognize her. Little did she know, one of her biggest fanatics just so happens to be a doctor there, and he will be the one tasked with delivering her baby. Despite idol fans' tropes suggesting he should be mad at her for having a baby, he's actually rather mixed because he generally wants to see Ai happy. But he knows her having a baby will affect her career, so he wants to make sure these babies come out happy, healthy, and normal. After learning, Ai and her agency will keep them a secret from the public. Sounds good so far. Unfortunately for him though, he dies. And then gets reincarnated as one of her babies. Let's go! Yeah, that actually happens. What of it? His name is Aqua Marine, probably called that because of his light blue eyes. Glad to see he still gets a weird celebrity kid name too. Contrastingly, his sister is named Ruby, which is a more normal name. Actually leads to a pretty funny scene where he wishes he took her place instead. This story progresses in about the way you'd expect. Just a nice little tale of a mother taking care of her two kids while also trying to balance her stressful job. But of course, It can't be that way. It's episode 1 after all. After some time, Ai begins to grow a lot as a celebrity. She's a known idol, she's an actress, she's a media personality. Things are looking up as she's about to get a big performance at a dome. A big deal for idols. And right when things were going to reach their climax, and seemingly Ai would enter stardom, tragedy strikes. I have a little bit of history with idol shows. I love them. A lot. So you may take what I'm about to say as bias due to recency in my love for the genre, but I mean this in the most genuine way I can. Ignoring what happens in the future, this story right here is excellent. When I first saw this, I was speechless. And even right now, as I am writing this, as I am talking to you right now, I do not think I can do this show justice. I've seen a lot of first episodes that wowed me to the extent that I was at a loss for words. But there is a reason those ones don't have their own separate videos on the channel. This episode is an experience. One that takes you on an emotional roller coaster of comedy and tragedy. One that explores the topic of lying in a sorrowful way, but also can be very reassuring and optimistic about that same topic. An adventure that shines a spotlight on the huge negatives of being an idol, hell, a celebrity, and how badly fans assume they know you or how they don't care about you as a person. I wouldn't have gotten murdered if that one fan didn't assume she was lying with malicious intent. That's why he kills himself after. He was wrong, and he realized it. I truly did love her fans. She just could never express it in an honest, genuine way. But by that point, it was too late. This anime really showcases just how dark a relationship between a fan and a celebrity can be, and how they react to them betraying the fans. Don't say it doesn't happen in the real world. I've seen it all before. Even with something as small as VTubers. Of course, it's not as bad as the anime perceives it to be, at least I hope it isn't, but it still exists in our world, and it's far deeper than just idols. But it also shows the more positive side of a fanatic. Fans who just want to see them happy. But that selfish side of the fan base takes center stage here, because that's kinda how it is in the real world. Not only that, but this episode talks about some very deep issues within the entertainment industry as a whole, especially for someone who's trying to be a star. How common lying is in order to make the most profit. That's what it meant by a world of fiction at the beginning. Idols, producers, directors, everyone. It's all just a bunch of personas, a bunch of false images. It's lying. Whether the intention is malicious or not, that's what it is. This will be brought up more later when talking about Ai, since it's essential to her character. Ai also learns about industry rule number 4080, which, if you're unaware, Tip, you mind explaining? Industry rule number 4080, record company people are shady. I've been wanting to use that clip for ages now. It's not exactly the same thing, but it still fits, because Ai struggles with making money due to the profits being split up by so many people. It's not going to her, despite her being the artist. As a single mother of 2, she can't live like that. In the acting industry, sometimes your role will be taken out due to the risk of you overshadowing the main actress. They were relying on this drama to boost her career. It's just another messed up thing this show explores. How art can be used as a business to satisfy specific people, but leave people at the bottom at the same time. It works out in the end, but it really makes the idea of being an entertainer sound like the most miserable thing out there. Even Aqua details it at the end. The fans are selfish. They'll bully you for getting a boyfriend. The money is divided so you don't make a lot. But it also shows the pure, more optimistic side with Ruby. How despite all of those problems, how she saw those problems firsthand, her mom shined. And she wants to shine too. Because deep down, Ruby always wanted to be an idol, and her mom, who she looked up to, said that she could do it. That means too much to her to just ignore. So with that in mind, let's explore these characters. Gotcha, bitch! You probably thought I was gonna talk about the kids. I think. Hopefully. Otherwise this joke doesn't really work. It's a little hard to talk about 2 characters who haven't even started their journey yet. But since I'm not sure how much of a role Ai is going to play directly in the series, since she's dead? I think it's safe to talk about her more generally. So, Ai's personality is that of a straightforward, kind of duncy girl who regularly forgets names. She's a fun character to follow, as she comes off as likable and childlike, but most importantly, happy, despite being caught up in an unpredictable situation. But that's only what she wants you to believe, as deep down, Ai is also a pathological liar, who doesn't really understand how to generally love people due to having no family in her upbringing. Her mother neglected her as a child, so she never really understands how it is to love somebody, or how it is to be loved. She comes off as rather dismissive when talking to the manager about becoming an idol. Since she doesn't know how to love, she doesn't think she can love the fans, only to find out she can lie about generally loving the fans. And to her, if she keeps saying she loves them, at some point, it'll just come true. Lying is how she shows her love, since she never knew any other way before. We can assume she's been lying her whole life, constantly wearing a smile that isn't real. But she never thought about those lies eventually becoming the truth. So throughout this episode, you will see Ai slowly try and turn these lies that she's telling into reality. She never even said she loved her kids, because she was so scared that it wouldn't be genuine, because at this point, all she knows is how to love via lying. It takes all the way to the end of her life to finally say it. She knew her time was up and just wanted to get it across, just how much she loves her family, a family she never had growing up. Ai's story is depressing as all hell. Hidden beneath the smile and those starry eyes is someone who doesn't understand what love even is. It makes you think about how often that word is thrown around by idols who might not even understand what it truly means either. It's heartbreaking to see that lying is the only way she was able to show how much she loved people. Watching this for a second time, knowing what happens to her, is even sadder to me, because you're aware of the reality she's about to face. The family she never had before won't last long, and all because of a misunderstanding. She wasn't lying out of malicious intent, she was lying because that's all she knows how to do. She wants to love people so badly but doesn't understand how to actually do it. She's a character going through some intense trauma due to her neglectful mother, which is only multiplied when you consider the harsh idol industry. She's constantly maintaining a public image and living for the adoration of others. It's quite an interesting character to learn about. I'll wrap this section up by pointing you all to a Twitter thread I found that describes Ai's mental health in better detail than I ever could. So if you want to hear more, the links are in the description. Yeah, they're combined. I don't have a lot to say about them singly, at least not yet. But this series does set up an interesting dynamic between the two kids. Both reacted to the tragedies differently. Aqua seems like he's colder after her death. His only reason for living at this point is to take revenge on the one who killed his mom, aka his father, because he was able to deduce that it was probably his dad who ordered the fan to kill his mom. He's probably gonna be an actor because you don't set all that up with his natural talent just for him to not be an actor. And using the industry, since Ai's circle was so small, their father had to be someone in the industry, he'll be able to find out who killed Ai. Aqua's intellect combined with his fanboy-like nature is a really fun contrast in his personality. Similarly, Ruby isn't as book-smart as her brother, but her using big words and being sort of dark, combined with her own fanboy-like nature being more obsessive, is entertaining as well. I really like when she goes on social media to defend Ai against all the haters. Speaking of, that's another difference between them. Ruby takes advantage of the fact she's Ai's daughter, constantly demanding attention from her, whereas Aqua is a lot more recluse. He actually has a moral compass, which caught me off guard. Maybe it's because I've seen one too many of these reincarnation anime where the MC is a horny bastard, but it was pretty neat to see the opposite of that. That's all I have to say on Aqua. He has a lot of room to grow, and I want to see how Ai's death, along with her own mental health problems, will affect him now that he's older. But I want to talk a little more about Ruby. In order to really understand her character, we need to talk about her past life. Ruby's story is incredibly touching, and it makes the tragedy that occurred that much more painful. Ruby was once known as Serena, a 9-year-old girl who currently has a brain tumor known as anaplastic astrocytoma. I really hope I pronounced that right. I am not a doctor. Depending on the grade of the tumor, which was never specified, you only have about a 40% chance at survival at least. Her body was so weak that she couldn't really move her body and she was always in the hospital. Yet one of the things that kept her going was her love for Ai. She watched her concerts because she had nothing else to do. So similar to how Aqua reincarnated as her kid, likely due to her own obsession to Ai, she was reborn as her child. One thing I do hope they clarify is how Serena reincarnated as Ai's kid since she died 4 years before she gave birth. And they talk about how if you die at that moment, then you can become an idol's kid. But Serena died years ago, so how did she get reincarnated as well? Maybe I misunderstood something, but I found that pretty weird. It could be just her obsession was so intense that it led her to not fully pass on until I gave birth. Who really knows? I hope they clarify it a little more. Because of Ruby's old condition, Ruby's body, even moving at all, is a miracle to her. This leads to a very touching scene where Ai teaches her how to dance. Because she's so used to falling down, she can't really balance all that well. But now she can finally move like the person she looked up to. This is what I mean by Ai dying hurts even more knowing Ruby's past. Because Ai was everything to her. Aqua loved her too, but at least he still had a life outside of Ai. Most of Serena's short life was spent in a hospital bed wanting to be like Ai, even knowing that deep down she'd never be able to. And yet the person she looked up to, the person she spent hours watching in a hospital bed, was dead right in front of her. I'm shocked she was able to stay positive years later. Maybe it's her way of grieving, but man, that is some sad shit. I'm also interested to see how Ruby is when she's older. She seems to be similar to Ai in the little bit we saw her. Hopefully she doesn't go through the same mental health issues her mom went through. I really hope she does not go through the exact same issues her mom goes through. I don't know if I can take much more of this. Please, just let her be happy, I'm begging you. Both of these characters are solid so far, and their already contrasting personalities should lead to some pretty entertaining chemistry between them. And I definitely enjoyed Ai's character. Kana is a character that really intrigues me as this big shot child star actress whose ego is getting in the way despite her immense talent. The president's wife had great growth in the last episode, but I'm not sure how relevant she's gonna be in the later episodes. I thought it was funny seeing her mind change after seeing the kids talk. They actually make her believe that they're like descendants of a god, which is really funny to me. Overall, the cast is solid so far. I can't wait to see where they head. The animation in this episode is insane. Time to shout out Toga Kobo. They've been a solid studio for years, and they're honestly one of my favorite studios, but even I had no idea they had something like this in them. You have to give an insane amount of credit to them because they made something magical. I noticed some consistencies like the fact snow seems to be falling every time someone dies, which I think is neat. And both Ai's and Aqua's death scenes were shot similarly. The idol concerts are brimming with color and some smooth movement as well. Anime studios are becoming terrifyingly good at idol concerts now. You can definitely see the similarities between this and Selection Project, which is from the same director and studio. And I loved how the colors die down once Ai dies, almost as if the heart of the show has been completely ripped out of it. It projects the feeling of dread the characters are facing to the viewer incredibly. Ai's death scene might flat out be the best scene of the year, for a variety of reasons that I'll bring up more later, but that animation there is just straight up amazing. There's not much else I can really say except just showing you. Sadly, I don't have the experience in animation to really tell you just how good this is. You just gotta see it. With the art, it's the same thing. The colors in this series are awe-inspiring. It makes some scenes really stand out, and it's all just so beautiful to look at. Bro, the eyes in this series. The eyes, man. The stars in Ai's eyes are so perfectly fitting for her personality, and it gives her such a memorable look. She shines like a star. Not only her personality, but how she is on the stage. she's the center, so she gets the most attention out of all the idols. Similarly, when Aqua and Rudy get theirs, it does the same thing. It just makes them stand out. When Ai dies, Aqua loses that sparkle in his eyes that was there before. Now it's dark and filled with dread. I also liked how in Ai's backstory, the star in her eye is faded in color, but even in her dying moments, her eyes kept shining. I think it's a nice touch. Kape made the art for this one, and I have to give credit to them. These pictures are insanely high quality, and the colors in them really pop, giving the series its own signature feeling. The backgrounds also look incredible. Some unique looking moving backgrounds for the comedy scenes, and there's just some beautiful landscaping in here. I have to say the art as a whole is just really good. So it's kind of weird talking about the OP for an anime that I haven't actually seen yet, but I heard it in the credits and good god. Also, this is the music video. Not sure how the OP will look, but this is what I'm using for footage. This music video is stellar, by the way. Watch it if you have the free time. So the OP is by Yosobi. I really liked what they did for Beastars, and this OP is kinda similar, but it also sounds more positive. And this beat, man. This freaking beat. Those hard-hitting bums mixed in with the choir and the synths just create a sound that I absolutely adore. And her flow and singing over it just creates something energetic that I love way too much for an anime that just came out. This has no reason to go as hard as it does. Also, the piano towards the end is stellar. A great way to bring a more calming end to the song. Plus, that crowd chanting in the background of the song make it sound like an idol concert. That's just a nice touch. Speaking of, there are not a lot of Ai's actual songs on here, but they sounded okay from what I've heard. Another great musical moment in this episode, again, involves Ai's death. It plays a slow piano that slowly fades away as Ai's life also begins fading away, leaving her actual death scene in utter silence as the star in the sky that was always symbolic of her disappears. It creates an emotional moment every time for me, no matter how many times I watch it. Besides that, the background track seems solid overall, but for the most part, it's a typical anime soundtrack. Voice acting here also looks to be a major highlight. Another Rie Takahashi god-tier performance where you don't recognize it's Rie Takahashi until you look online and realize Rie goddamn Takahashi voices this character and everything just begins to make sense. Ah, that's why this performance is stellar. It's Rie Takahashi. For a VA as popular as her, you think it'd be easy to recognize her immediately? Nah. You can listen to every character she voices back to back and not hear her voice. It's actually nuts. I legit just watched Tomo-chan and made a whole review where I said all of this, and now she wants to do it again? Her performance as Ai is stellar. Simple as that. Not much I can really say here. Now, one thing that did surprise me is that Ruby is voiced by Yurei Igoma, who's brand spanking new! All I could find on her was some really minor performances. Shocking because I thought Ruby was really solid. Aqua has 2 voice actors. I'm guessing one's for when he's a kid and one is for when he's older. I'm gonna say the kid was voiced by Yumi Uchiyama, the voice of Rudy. Kinda funny considering they are completely different but in similar situations. She does a really good job, and we'll have to wait and see on Takeo Usuka's performance. A side character's performance that I really want to spotlight is Megami Han as Kana. She plays the cocky kid really well, and you can hear her emotions when she breaks down. To me, this premiere is perfect. Not only does it tell an amazing individual story that has so many different emotions in it that by the end you're left speechless, but it also builds to the sequel really nicely. I'm curious how the show continues on without Ai. She's definitely a big loss since her personality is just so fun to watch. I loved what Aki did with Kaguya-sama from the very beginning to now, and I trust that he'll be able to make something special with this. I also also wonder if this series maintains this level of quality. Too many times an anime has a premiere had amazing production only to immediately drop off. It'll at the very least be interesting to follow for the season. For now though, this episode is some incredible work. I completely get why they made this episode as long as they did. All of this build-up was necessary for this story to really hit you as hard as it does. It needed time to build up an emotional connection to Ai as a character, to set up Aqua as an actor, to set up Ruby as an idol, and to connect all of those stories together to the one we're on now. Even a 40-minute episode would not have been enough, since you don't want to rush or cut out too much. I think this was a perfect idea, and it really shows Doga Kobo's and the rest of the staff's commitment to making sure this anime works as best as it can. Thank you all for checking out this review. Kinda different from my usual reviews, but hopefully it still comes out nice. And I'll get back on track to the other shows I was going to review from the last season before I got sidetracked with this. I'll see y'all next time. This has been Kikaya, and goodbye.
Be crazy for me, make me shine on you. You gotta see me when you hear my music. I'll be there for you, no matter where you go. How do you see me from your point of view? I see your heart. I'll take you higher.
Big ass nigga on a scooter drinking Capri Sun.